Hey guys, what's up? Shadowlands back for another video. Today I'm going to be playing Common Arms Reloaded instead of Classic. I wanted to give it another shot after not touching it for about 2 weeks, so I think it's kind of time to do a video on this. And it occurred to me I hadn't actually done a video on Reloaded since my channel started getting more videos put on it, so you know what? It's time for some Reloaded. I want to also apologize. I intended to get this video out yesterday, but that ended up not happening, so we're doing it today. So today I want to talk about some differences between Reloaded and Classic and what I kind of want the two games to do. Now this is mostly personal preference, but I'm going to back up what I'm saying a little bit so you guys at least can kind of see where I'm coming from. So let's dive right into this, no more ado. Disregarding the shit tier UI and Reloaded, because we all know it's just garbage, and that was left over from Nexon. I don't even want to blame Below for that, since they're already starting to deal with bugs regarding that. We'll get to that in a minute. But they're already dealing with bugs in the UI, which is fantastic. They're tackling that right away. They're actually handling that really, really well, and I'm pleased about that. So I think Reloaded is going to go in a positive direction, and I'm hoping eventually we can kind of phase out this really crappy UI and lean more towards another one. So that's kind of something I'm hoping for, but we'll get into that again in a minute. I actually have a more detailed explanation on that. I wanted to say right off the bat that aside from the shit tier UI and Reloaded, the two games are very similar, but they have some refined strengths. And here's what I mean by that. I think Classic has the potential to be a great balanced game with plenty of room for competition and has the ability to turn into a great competitive game if the company goes that way. I want to see clan wars come back. I want to see a lot of the communication systems come back, like voice chat and better clan chat, better recruiting. A lot of the recruiting on Classic is still kind of bugged out. I've mentioned that before. That hasn't changed, and they actually have not addressed it yet, so I'm hoping that they will soon. But it is kind of bugged out right now, hoping that gets attacked at some point and they're able to fix it. I can understand why it's not high on their priority list right now, because clan wars are kind of dead right now and not working, and not too many people are worried about clans on Classic right now. Most people playing on Classic are more in it for the fun and the nostalgia, but to be totally honest, I think it really does have the potential to do that because the game is balanced again without having all of these people with crazy overpowered weapons and everyone's kind of set back to zero, so I think it's kind of a fair trade. And then Reloaded, on the other hand, has plenty of room to evolve into a more fun and casual game. Now, I'm not saying remove all competition and clan wars from Reloaded. That's not what I'm saying. In fact, I think they should stay. But I think Reloaded has a better potential than Classic to be a more casual game, and I want to put it that way, because then they can go and test the waters with all these new technologies with the engine. They can do more crazy stuff with the graphics, and they can implement more fun stuff into the game. Classic obviously is being kind of hindered by its classic original engine, which has since changed quite a bit since Reloaded came out. And so I'm kind of expecting Classic to stay the way it is, and I really don't want it to change. That's a personal opinion. I know that's probably not shared by everybody, but Reloaded, I feel, has more room to grow, and I kind of want to see it grow. I want to see them implement new modes, new maps, and new mechanics on maps. You never know, like, whenever we get something new. For a while, interacting with things on the map when the game first came out, we had Snow Valley. Really, the only thing you could interact with was, like, doors, and that was all you could really do. You couldn't interact with anything else in the map, but as it kind of went on, you were able to interact with ladders and latches, other doors. Lots of other stuff got put into the game to make the maps more dynamic, which I thought was really, really cool. But it's stuff like that that you can implement into the map on Reloaded that'll let you do things like that, like closing and opening latches, like on that, it's kind of that sewer map. I'm kind of forgetting what it's called. Dredge, I think is what it's called. Dredge? Yeah. And so you're able to interact with doors and shut down pathways for people to walk through. So that's some really cool mechanic stuff going on right there. It's actually part of the reason I love that map so much. But continuing, anyway, Reloaded has plenty of room for casual improvement, and I think Classic has a lot of potential to be a great competitive game if people decide to go that way, for the same reason that Counter-Strike is still really competitive. It's very basic, but it does its job very, very well, and I think Classic has the potential to do that if the company is willing to drive it that way. However, on the unfortunate side, the rollback for Classic did remove some of the better features, mostly UI related and things that made it easier to set up competitive matches, but there are some other features in the game that got shut down that made it a little bit more difficult, like friend invites and stuff to games don't work so well right now, obviously, with the messenger not working. So aside from UI stuff, there's some stuff there that makes it a little more difficult. And player count in general on Classic is lower than Reloaded. I want to make an estimate and say it's about 1/5 of the player count right now. That is an estimate. I'm not saying that's absolutely true at all, but I'm gonna guess there's about 1/5 of the players on Classic or less compared to Reloaded. But that's kind of my estimation after playing both games for a few weeks now. Actually, bordering on a month, actually, playing both games pretty well. So either way, it makes it very hard to build a competitive scene large enough to sponsor players and teams in a constructive way. Back in the day when Clan Wars were a real big deal, you had all these websites, you had ELO scores, you had all these ranking sites that made it very clear who was doing well in Clan Wars, and it gave people incentive to go and do stuff like that. But with all of these features removed and a lot of communication stuff shut down, it makes it very, very difficult for players to feel invested and to get, kind of feel like they're being no, I don't want to say funded. Sponsored is a better word, where people say like, oh yeah, we can host tournaments and make it actually organized and stuff. It makes it significantly more difficult to do any of that. But either way, I'd like to see that stuff kind of fixed, and I think that's something that they could attack if they wanted to go and start building the competitive scene back up on Classic. I'd like to see Reloaded continue down the path of casual, like I was saying earlier, where new weapons are released, and it's okay if they're a little bit overpowered. It's fine. It's meant to be casual and fun. I know when I get on Reloaded, I just pick whatever weapons I feel like out of my inventory. I'll slap on an F2000 Tactical, or I'll slap on a CZ805. I won't necessarily go pick the best weapons. I'll pick up a basic MP7 with no attachments. It's just fun to play around with what you can. And I honestly think that Reloaded is the game that should be somewhat throwing caution to the wind and trying new things, like I was talking about earlier with the whole upgraded engine. It's able to support more things. There's more things you can do in game. You can build more different modes, and the AI could probably get a little bit smarter too. I'm not sure what the engine's able to support in terms of AI. That's not my specialty, but I would like to see some of those stuff put in there, possibly some PvE modes. There were some really cool ones back in the day, and I love Cabin Fever, even if the zombies are absolutely stupid. They have like an if-then statement, and that's what they run on, but for any programmers out there. But I think that Classic, on the other hand, should probably stick to the basics and only implement what is absolutely necessary to stay as balanced as possible. Now, that's not saying don't release new maps and new content. That's saying keep it very leveled, keep the gameplay the way that it is now, keep the mechanics the way it is now, and keep the engine as true to the original game as possible. Don't throw up any crazy sales where you're selling all your NX rares for half price or something. Don't do that. That was bad. Just keep it very leveled, because right now the game is extremely balanced when not everybody has completely overpowered weapons, and it's a lot of fun. I like playing those kind of games where it requires the players to have a little bit more skill, take a little more time with their shots, their snipers, and not just jump quickscope you across the map with a Tango or an MSR or something like that. It's great to actually be able to have good competitive games like that, and that's why I personally have been enjoying Classic more than Reloaded. I like that style of game. That's obviously a personal preference, but it's something that probably the company should not ignore, and so that's kind of important. But long story short, just keep the playing field as level as possible. Ultimately, I don't mind Reloaded becoming some sort of cash cow to support both games, as long as the prices are reasonable, if they have to forgo some sales over on Classic. Just to make sure that both games succeed, allow Reloaded to be the place that most players feel comfortable spending their money, which I feel is probably already the case, given that since when you obviously carried over your account, you didn't carry over your weapons, so all of your weapons remain on your Reloaded account. And what that means is you're probably more interested. Let's put it that way. Interested is a good word. Interested to go spend your money on Reloaded instead of Classic, because all your stuff is already there. And so if you want to keep building up the account, you're building up the account that you've been building up all along, and it feels less like you're starting from scratch. So that's also kind of important. A few other points of note for this video that are unrelated to this topic that I did want to touch on. I've been reading over the update notes, going through the forums, and just wanted to kind of give a quick summary to all of you guys who are not reading up on that stuff. The devs have addressed the issue in Reloaded of not being able to manage your inventory inside a game room. That has been probably the biggest bug in the game, where once you've joined a game room, you can't fill out your loadout, you can't edit your inventory, you can't change anything unless you completely leave the game and then come back in. It is a bug. You can view your inventory, but you cannot edit it, which is kind of a problem currently. So it sounds like they have announced that they are attacking it. That was announced a few days ago, so we're looking forward to an update that will fix that issue. It also sounds like the devs are finally implementing a testing range for weapons you can buy from the shop so that you can test it before buying. Nexon never did this, and it blows my mind why the hell not. You were buying completely blank, you had no idea what was going on, and that's why reviews were super useful. I mean, reviews are always going to be useful to see how they perform in actual combat, and reviewers will be able to go over things that you can't test in a testing range without having live targets and stuff, but it is very, very nice to test a whole bunch of things without having to go and purchase the weapon. It also means that reviewers, for some instances, may not need to go and actually purchase the weapon themselves, so more reviews can get put out, which is really awesome. So it is kind of nice to see that finally being put in. I still have no clue why that never got put in the original game, so that just always bothered me, but glad that is finally getting addressed. Also, one thing that I've noticed, and this is just from usage of the forums, response time on the forums for Reloaded has been lightning fast, which is a far cry from Nexon's old service, where you might post something and it won't get addressed for a month, 2 months, or a year. I'm not even joking about that. I had some forum responses back from 2014 or 15 that did not get responded to until 2016 late in the year, so it is actually that bad at some instances, and at that point you obviously forget you even made the forum post. But they've been very, very quick getting back to response times in less than half a week, which I think is very fast, especially for game development like this. And to be honest, any upgrade from Nexon's old policies is, it's an upgrade in my mind. So that has very much impressed me with Velof, despite the lackluster Valentine's events. Valentine's events were kind of crap, but to be honest, it was literally their first attempt to host a real event other than like the Christmas event, which was kind of already templated out for them. So this is their first time making their own event, in my opinion, so I'm going to cut them some leeway for the first 2, 3, maybe even 4 events, because it takes time to game balance and get this stuff working well. Obviously, they probably could have done a better job, but they're also new at the game, so I'm not going to be too harsh on them about the Valentine's event stuff. Unrelated to anything else, several gear sets such as the Hausers, Winter Set, Phoenix, and Rocco sets are being rebalanced. And it's not that these things are being rebalanced that is actually, like, catching my attention. Sure, rebalance them. It's that, holy shit, they're actually rebalancing something. Let me rephrase that. Holy shit, they're actually rebalancing something. They are rebalancing something that is already in the game. That hasn't been done. I think the last time Nexon did that is when they released and then removed the Assassins and the Synapse Scrambler and all that stuff from the game because it was broken beyond all compare. And I don't know why they didn't do that with some other things, but that was the only time I can really recall Nexon rebalancing certain things. And when I say rebalancing, I don't mean just nerfing into the ground. Nexon did that plenty. I don't call that balancing. I call that nerfing into the ground. And some players might argue that that is a type of balancing, and I can see that argument. But you know what? I think it's great that Velof is actually going in and tweaking things to make sure they work, and they aren't just, this gun was a 40 damage gun, and now it is a 12 damage gun. That is what it felt like when they rebalanced a lot of the stuff when Nexon just nerfed things into the ground before. So hopefully this rebalancing session goes really well. And I'm definitely going to keep a really close eye on how these things get rebalanced and see if they get completely broken, what they do with these. I kind of want to make a video on that later on. So last thing that I want to put on is there has been a supreme lack of news and updates in Classic for the last month or so, but given the state of the game, I'm not too alarmed by it because I feel that's not so much of a bad thing right now. They have already addressed the existence of hacks in the forums, which is by far the biggest issue with Classic right now, and they're already being worked on from what I understand, so I'm just going to let that fester. Hopefully we can see an update in the next couple of weeks on that, and I'll have a video out on that when it comes out. But for the time being, I would really, really like to see how those get dealt with, and I'm really interested in seeing where the game goes over the next year. Definitely one of the next topics I'm going to touch on is kind of where I expect to see the game go ultimately. So like a 1 year from now, what I expect to see sort of thing from Combat Arms Classic and Reloaded. So definitely tune back in for that. Hit that rate, comment, subscribe button, and I will see you guys in the next video. Shadowlance out.